Great. So welcome to another Insurindex podcast. I don't know what number it is, but today I'm really delighted. We're going to be talking all things claims, very close to my heart. And we're talking all things claims with Liberty Specialty Markets. And I'm delighted to have here with me Henry Nelson, who is Chief Underwriting Officer, UK and MENA, and now active underwriter.
Incoming active underwriter.
Incoming,
right,
okay, we got that right, for Syndicate 4472.
Correct.
So congratulations on the
thank you very much.
expanded role, Henry.
Thank you for having us.
Great. And I've also got Zara Ismail, who is Head of Client and Broker Distribution Claims Global.
Correct, that is.
Is that right?
It's a mouthful.
Brilliant. Yeah, but that kind of does say what you do. Zara and I have worked together for many years on claims, and we're really positive advocates of claims. So just like to start, really, maybe Henry, you could give us, people are always interested in how people, they always say ended up in insurance, but it always sounds terribly negative.
Yeah.
But how did you get in?
I agree. I didn't end up in insurance. I actually wanted to come into insurance. I was very fortunate. I joined the graduate scheme at Aon. I spent while I was at university, I spent lots of time trying to work out which bit of financial services I wanted to go into. Did all sorts of different internships and work experience, and bluntly hated all of it. And then I spent a bit of time with some people that I knew who talked a bit about insurance, and so I started exploring those opportunities. Joined Aon on their graduate scheme, and I've been at Liberty for the last 12 years. So yeah, it's a very humbling and a very exciting time for me to now be expanding my responsibilities to be the active underwriter of the syndicate, which is the company that I joined 12 years ago.
And you've had a number of roles which aren't, and underwriting roles as well, haven't you? In between Aon.
Yeah, that's right. I've done all sorts of things. So I started as an assistant underwriter on box 63A on the ground floor at Lloyd's, and then I did various underwriting roles across political violence lines, multi-line marine. I then set up a portfolio management department as we were navigating our way through the soft cycle, the last soft cycle, and Decile 10, if we remember that. And then most recently, I was Phil Hobbs's chief of staff. So I was the chief of staff to all of Liberty's international insurance businesses.
It's going to all be incredibly useful to our conversation. And Zara, where did you get into it?
I think like a lot of people in insurance got into it by accident.
Right.
Started off in law. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. Started studying for that, realised I did not want to be a lawyer, and went into business development. And from that, got into the insurance disputes side of it and never left.
Brilliant. And so I think for those that listen to this and don't know about insurance, what this broadly means is you've had a really broad set of experience, and you're not entirely typical, but I think from your perspective, Henry, as well, it's really very useful to have someone who's worked in a broking firm as well as in an underwriting business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredibly complicated value chain in the insurance industry, but it's a very important value chain. Every different part adds a huge amount of value to the transaction, particularly here in London. This global wholesale hub, which is the only true global market on the planet. Every individual part of the value chain is critically important. And so having had experience being part of that wholesale team, I was in the global broking center at Aon at the time. I still use the learnings that I had at that time, and we use them as part of setting our strategy. It's very important to understand what the different drivers and dynamics are of not only our customers but also our intermediary partners. So that's very important.
So we're going to talk about claims, and I'm just going to get straight into it. Okay, because there's a lot to talk about in claims. It's an interesting part of the business. So how important is claims to LSM's sort of brand and market proposition these days?
I mean, ever increasingly important. And last time we spoke, Ben, we talked a lot about the cycle, and I think we talk a lot about Liberty's stability and consistency through a cycle for the benefit of our customers and our broker partners. And claims is absolutely central to our value proposition. Far too often, in my view, claims, a cliche is chucked at claims like, it's a table stakes, or it is
the shop window.
The shop window,
that's
yeah.
The one I don't
and that's just not true. The reality is, claims is the point at which we see our customer on their worst day. And, as we are an underwriting firm, our job is to take risk off our customer's balance sheet and to take it onto our balance sheet, which is incredibly important. Claims is effectively the delivery mechanism at which we reassure them on their worst day, and it's hugely important. the claims dynamic is changing as well. And, Zara and her team do a fantastic job making sure that claims is not only sort of after the event, but it's something that's critical to renewal, it's critical to winning new business. It's central to the way that we justify to our brokers that we are the lead market of choice, and it's something that we're investing in significantly through and into the ever increasingly soft cycle.
Yeah, and I guess, Zara, when I started, many years ago working with claims teams, there were no such thing as BD people working for claims, and now there are quite a few. You're obviously one of the best and the originals. So what does that role involve, and what do you kind of do? What's it doing in terms of looking for the value in claims for the business?
Well, essentially, it is just that. It's how do we unlock that value that exists within Liberty and wider markets for the benefit of our clients and brokers. Now, that will differ depending on the business line, the product, the way it's placed, the broker and the insureds that we work with. So our role is to identify what those needs are. We partner really closely internally with our client teams, our distribution teams, our underwriters, to really understand what that might be. And then we look at how we can derive that efficiency. Maybe it's to do with the way they'd like to be communicated. It could be that certain insureds want to have more thought leadership. It's really got to be tailored to the needs of those individuals. And that's where our job comes in, is how do we do that matchmaking to really unlock that value for them.
Great. Just stepping back a little bit, there's a lot of talk now, risks are changing, and we kind of know this, don't we? We see headlines now about cyber attacks, and this is, it's kind of worrying world, really, in lots of ways. So from your perspective, Zara, maybe you can talk about it because you're kind of at the coalface of claims. What are the kind of risks now that you're thinking about and your teams are thinking about?
It's, as you say, ever-evolving landscape, the interconnectedness of those risks, the more global that they are, the speed in which those risks are hitting us, it can be quite tricky. For us, it's about how do we respond to those? How do we make sure that our individuals are technically gifted, have got the right skill sets, the right tools at their fingertips to be able to help protect our insureds, and also work closely with our brokers to make sure that we're working on those emerging risks and getting ahead of them as fast as we can.
And you're talking to clients, are you, regularly about these things I was going to say pitches and things, but also I guess just those clients you've known for a long time about these risks and what they need to do about them. Are they asking you more questions?
Absolutely. I think with Liberty, our approach is really partnering with those insureds. And I think that is what we're seeing a bit of a change in the market, and that claims is being brought further up that sales cycle. So actually not just there to respond and react, but actually how can we get ahead of that? I think key to that is part of that onboarding process, but even starts well before that. So when we're going into winning a new bit of business, it's identifying those clients and working with them well before the pitch even comes in, so that they have a better understanding of how we might respond, but we also have a better understanding of the needs of their business, how they're structured, the way they like to approach their claims internally structured, some of their other functions like their health and safety functions or financial functions, really understanding that so that we can get ahead of that, so we can look at the risk mitigation. Now, we've done a lot of work with our claims data, looking at how we can start spotting some of those emerging risks, spotting some of those trends, so that we can take that information and apply it to those individuals' needs in a manner that's going to be helpful for them. And as I said before, it's got to be tailored. There's no point in us doing lots and lots of roundtables or sending lots of emails or trying to get in if that's just not the way that the business is structured. We've got to do it in a sort of tailored way that's going to be meaningful.
Great. So let's come back to you, Henry. You talked about claims now being more important. Is it really now a selling point? This is...
Yeah, it has to be. And I think, as Zara's just articulated, we're in an increasingly dynamic risk environment. The world, I think you said the world's becoming quite a scary or a worrying place, and that's true. When we're speaking to our customers, risk management departments, purchasing functions are getting more sophisticated, and as a result, we need to get more sophisticated to tailor to their needs. Increasingly, the conversations that we're having with our clients and with our broker partners are not just about the policy in hand, but it's also those emerging risks and how can we provide them insight that may never end up with an insurance transaction, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It's, from our point of view, it's all about pre-claim care and then that post-claim response. I think the one thing I'd just add to what Zara just said is, while the risk environment around us is changing, there are a few principles that just are ever present and consistent. The first is we want our customers to understand in the event of a claim, what is their experience going to look like? Yeah. The last thing they want to be thinking about is how do they contact us? How will our product be delivered to them? How will we respond? So giving them, effectively the people that they're going to be talking to and making sure that they've got a relationship with those people before we end up in a situation of a claim is critically important to us. And something that we have to work really hard on, and we can never lose sight of it. We spoke a bit earlier, the insurance transactions are a complicated one, particularly in global wholesale hubs. We get quite fixated on strategy and winning and losing and all of those things, whether it's new business generation. We always need to keep in mind that our customer is there, ever present, and is absolutely central to everything that we do. And claims is, in my mind, at Liberty, is the best exponent of doing that on our behalf. They're a constant reminder to our underwriting teams.
Because I agree, and what you're saying is spot on, and I think it does feel like there is now more of a kind of holistic approach to this from insurers, including LSM, really, which is to try and, I think the penny's kind of dropped that we sell the policy, and then the problem with that is there's a kind of gap then, isn't there? And a claim, as you say, may never happen. You may indeed, and that's misunderstood often as well, is that sometimes you don't even need an insurance policy. We don't have to write an insurance policy. We're talking about mitigating risk. So that communication challenge is really important, isn't it? And how you do that now, it seems to me, really sets the good insurers apart from the not so good, perhaps.
Yeah, claims is just part of the integrated business unit, which I promised I wouldn't use any corporate buzzwords, but the integrated business unit.
Yeah, but that is important, isn't it now? Because before it wasn't like that, was it? It was departmental. So you had another communication, potentially an issue.
That's exactly right. Our underwriters, our claims team, our actuarial colleagues, our finance business partners, our operations teams all sit together, right? They're all part of the same team. We don't think about it like underwriting, claims, etc. We think about it by product. And that's the way that our customers want to talk to us. And it's very, very important. It also allows us to make sure that we've got our best technical experts and our decision makers all showing up at the same time to talk to our customers and our brokers. And that's how we put our best foot forward. I can't think of any major opportunity or challenge that we face as an organisation where one department will fix it or one individual will fix it. Yeah. And particularly as we go to market, underwriting without claims or claims without underwriting bluntly is a bit of an irrelevance. And so, we need to stop thinking about it in those terms.
Yeah. It's not just an operational thing, is it? It's much more than that.
Spot on.
Zara said.
Totally agree with that. I mean, our clients aren't buying a claims function or an underwriting function or a piece of paper. They are buying Liberty, right? And it's the strength of all of our parts. And how do we bring that together? Again, going back to that value, I think the communication part is really key. And actually, it's not just about how fast we respond, but what's the quality of that response and the timeliness of that response. What is it that the client needs in that situation? Also, there's the element with the broker too. Like, what is it that our claims brokers that we're working with needs? Are there documents missing? Is there information that might be missing? Is it that we need to go away and find out a little bit more? And actually, there might be a bit of a delay. How do we communicate that to our claims brokers or to our client execs or to the client, just to keep them updated at every stage rather than having absolute silence? And there's lots of ways of doing that. I think what's also really key is in this world of growing technology and AI and looking at ways of managing claims a bit faster and speedier, that we don't lose that human element of it. So we talk a lot about empathy in this market, and it's giving our claims handlers the right time and headspace to be able to manage those claims in an empathetic and caring way, remembering that there is a person at the end of these claims. They may have seen 10,000 of these claims. They may be absolutely run-of-the-mill to them, but actually the person on the other end, it's their first experience of this. So how do we make sure that our people who've got that right headspace and training to do that?
Just talk, it's a good moment just to talk a bit about teams. I mean, I obviously think your team's fantastic. It's brilliant. I think generally claims teams are really impressive when you talk to them, and they're actually they're sometimes quite quiet. I think they don't kind of brag about what they do.
You haven't met our claims team, clearly.
They should do. Maybe I think they should do more of that, and tell the stories about claims, which we have been talking a lot. But what are the kind of characteristics of the team, the LSM team? The people themselves, as opposed to talking about the process.
Yeah, I mean, people and culture at Liberty is what really sets us apart. And definitely you can see that in the claims team, no matter where in the world you're speaking to somebody, doesn't matter what department, what business line they support. I hope that they're people, the people come first, and you can tell that there's like a Liberty culture. first and foremost. In terms of the makeup of our claims team, I think it is rapidly evolving. I think gone are the days of just having a technical claims handler, someone who can sit there and crunch numbers and sort of punch things through. We've got really, really sophisticated individuals. They're subject matter experts. They come from various backgrounds, engineering, marine biologists. You've got lawyers in there, adjusters, brokers, etc. Like that diversity of thought. But they're supported by specific claims functions. So we've got a really, really strong strategic ops team. We've got teams in there who can look at the sort of data crunching, business analysis. We've obviously got our claims BD team, which looks at how can we unlock all of those different functions. And that's just what I think adds the extra value back to the client. And hopefully what that really translates to is speed, because we've got those people who have been in the market for a long time, who know when to seek legal advice, who know when actually we've read these policies, we can get a quick assessment, but also how do we then take that knowledge and make it into value? And that's where we've got something called Claims Plus. So that's our sort of product that brings all those different services together. And we take that knowledge that resides in all those different specialists and we bring it to our clients, to those insureds, to help them again with the risk mitigation, to pick up the phone to ask, the naughty questions, so to speak. But we also want to do that with our claims brokers and our broking partners. So how can we partner with them? How can we share our knowledges, our data, our trends that we're seeing, and work in partnership to overlay that with what our brokers are seeing, again, to bring that ultimate value back either to the market as a whole or to those key insureds.
You've had this part of your proposition, which is Claims Plus. And I mean, I know about it and it's run for quite a few years. Do you want to just talk a little bit about it? Because it's a very important part of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely how claims can differentiate itself. It's essentially a product, so to speak, bringing all of our different value-added services to our brokers and to our clients. It looks at the stuff that we can do pre-loss. So understanding those clients, looking at the risk mitigations, looking at during losses, how can we support them throughout those losses, sort of more hand-holding, giving them the information they might need outside of the regular day-to-day claims handling. And it looks at that post-loss side of things. So what are the lessons learnt? How can we sort of bring those lessons back into, if it's an insured, into their business to try and work with our risk engineers or whoever it might be to help them learn from those things and grow as a business and give them a bit more sort of resilience. So hopefully it doesn't happen the next time. What we also want to do is take the learnings that we have from the industry, from our other clients in similar industry sectors, and again bring those learnings to help get those insured or those brokers to prevent those losses, to learn, to put training in place, etc. So it's really about how can we bring that tailored value to that industry sector, to that broker business line, that market, etc. For us, our Claims Plus product is a global product. So our claims team is very interconnected. It's all sort of comes under one person. It comes under Mike Gillett, who's been in the industry for many years and understands pretty much every product that there is out there, which is very helpful. But we can bring those learnings and insights from the various different experts around the globe. So it doesn't matter if you're just insured with our London underwriters, if you have, or even if it's just a sort of a UK property that's been underwritten. If you have supply chains that are being impacted in the Far East, for example, or stuff being held up in sort of the Middle East, we can bring the knowledge of the people who are on the ground or the subject matter experts to help you learn and benefit from that. So it's not just access to who you happen to be underwritten with. We bring the business as a whole to those key insureds and to those brokers.
I mean, I think it's fantastic. And actually, when it first came out, I think it was ahead of its time. And if you think of everything now that's going on in the market, it's exactly what you should be talking about. And I think it's brilliant. I think you make more of it, I would say.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been evolving. And each year it kind of gets better and better. So, yeah, it's great.
And that Claims Plus kind of increased the footprint, didn't it, of claims in a sense. It said, as you said earlier, I think, Henry, it brought it not to just when you have a claim, it's actually almost bringing the client into this. So that although this is a kind of transactional business still, and if you don't have a claim, you don't have to speak to your insurer, it kind of plays out the idea that actually just stay in touch, or we'll stay in touch with you, And that's a kind of it's a two-way conversation about both evolving risk, but the ones that are already booked, they have policies for, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we're fortunate at Liberty that we write a business at scale, and we've got a fair share of the market. As a result, we see it as our obligation to use all of the information that we gather, our claims handlers gather, our risk engineers gather, our underwriters gather, to help provide insights to our customers. It doesn't have to be their experience, their lived experience. They need to see the benefit of doing business with Liberty. And the one thing I would say is claims and our claims strategic operations team are right at the very forefront of our deployment of new technology. If we think about the first use cases that we've taken to production in AI, it was in claims. If we think about some of the straight-through processing and some of the efficiencies that we've seen that allow our technical experts to spend more time thinking about value and how they can help our customers and our brokers, it happened in claims. And in underwriting, in operations, we're learning a lot from our claims team as well in that, which is to the benefit of everyone, not just ourselves.
Okay, so you mentioned the dreaded AI word, and we have to talk about it.
Of course.
So I'm going to preface it by saying, look, I know this is not going to be the final word on AI. We're all, everyone in the world is dealing with what we do with it and how we do with it. But can you give a kind of personal view of where you think you are with AI, what's doing? I don't really want a corporate view. It's just kind of what's its possibilities, I guess. If that's what now we really call, it's become a catchword for all technology, hasn't it, in a way, AI?
Yeah, I think, I think we need to think about transformative AI and, whether that's agentic, the modern traditional AI and machine learning has been used in insurance and has been used by Liberty for decades. If we think about all of our pricing models, they're built on some form of that technology. And to be, all of the steps and advances that we've made in that space, whether that's information that's fed in from claims through reserving, etc., has all been incremental. We're now at a very explosive period for the industry. And we see it as an enormous opportunity, but also it's a risk, we do need to be open-eyed and clear-eyed to that. If we think about our priorities as an organisation, and also it's an opinion that, we share, I think, is that, what it should allow us to do is to become explosively more productive and become an extension of the things that we already do well. Our strategy is our strategy. Our strategy is to deliver top quartile through a cycle, be the best partner for our customers and broking partners, and to be the best place to work. That is enabled by technology in almost every way, and we see it very much as a foundational building block rather than a work stream or a thing. I think claims, Zara can come on to the specific use cases that we've done in claims in a minute, but as I said earlier, claims is absolutely at the cutting edge of that because that's where we're delivering the most value to our customers.
Do you want to comment on that? I had another question around AI, but do you want to comment on use cases or things that you are doing?
Yeah, certainly. It is definitely an enabler. It's not a replacement for individuals, and I think within our business, it's a relationship people business, and so I hope it won't ever sort of remove that human element of it. For us at Liberty, we've really been focusing on how we use AI, well, in two ways, really. In one way, it's about how do we use that to cleanse our data, how we really look into the specifics of it so that we can start using it elsewhere and actually add it back into sort of our policy wordings, into our writing, our actuarial models, etc. So a large part of it was just looking at large language models to clean up some of backlogs, look at those loss codes so that we can start really pinpointing some of the causes of loss, then be able to use that as a risk mitigator. So that's been sort of a big area. I think where actually Liberty as a business has been using AI and where it's really, really helping is some of the real basic sides of things. So the introduction of Copilot, but actually the power that gives us to be able to summarize massive documentations, looking at massive legal reports and trying to identify where those key sort of cases might be, where the precedents might be, really speeds up that claims handling process. And also taking away some of that administrative side of things, typing up minutes, for example. Small changes, 10 minutes here, can make such a big difference into that speed of responsiveness and hitting those SLAs.
And most importantly, it's fantastic for structuring podcast.
We are just AIs. This isn't actually
exactly.
us speaking.
Exactly. No, it genuinely is really good for that. And I get all that. And I just wanted to come back to something you were touching on, Henry, I think, which I think is a great is a big topic, and I think potentially is a growing topic really around AI risks themselves and wordings and so on and so forth, and catching up with this very fast-moving world in which, the almost all of these risks now, I guess, are touched with, well, what are you doing with AI? Because that in itself becomes a risk, doesn't it? Is that about right?
Yeah, the way that we think about technology risk at its broadest is we've got operational risk, and then we've got insurance risk effectively, and we think about those two things reasonably separately, and for good reason. There is also an obligation and an opportunity in there as well, which is, our job. We are in the risk management business. That's what we do. We underwrite risk. And so as a result, it's our obligation to make sure that we're meeting our customers where they need us the most. Some things are unknowns. And, that's a challenge for the market. And that is where product integrity becomes even more important, and sort of tying it back to the claims that I think, Zara, you spoke about empathy, really. Our job is to deliver fairness fast, sort of through our claims mechanism, and that's something that we've got a proven track record of doing. Is one of the consistencies across Liberty globally. Is everywhere you go, we'll be in the top 1 to 3 claims handling firms in any particular market. I think we have an answer yet in terms of what artificial intelligence is going to do to the indemnity products and what we need to do? No, we don't. Do I think that London and the London wholesale market is going to have to and should play an absolutely central role to meeting our customers? Yes, I do. I think the syndication of risk, the subscription model, the Lloyd's market is designed and structurally set up to foster innovation in a responsible way that doesn't overexpose any one carrier's balance sheet, which is to the benefit of our customers, because that should create some form of pricing stability and allows customers to build more capacity than they would be able to in other markets. We always say our customers don't want to buy 25 million of anything, they want to buy 500 million of everything. So I think that the London market's got a critical role to play there. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper answer for you yet, Ben, but we are working on it.
No, but I think it is important to touch on it, because the industry the changes are evident in what you're saying. You've got to move much faster, haven't you, at pace, and everybody has to do that, and you have to work with brokers and those products will adapt, won't they, and evolve as they always have done.
Of course, and I think you shouldn't just limit that to technology risk, or opportunity. If we think about supply chain dynamics and what's happened, with various global conflicts and changing norms in sort of what we saw as a reasonably stable geopolitical environment 10 years ago. If we look at how property policies are having to respond, if we look at the way that the market's re-underwritten BI volatility because of energy risks and what's been going on in global markets, all of those things, our products demonstrate that they can flex with the times. COVID's another great example.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely something that we're always working on. I don't think we should approach technology risk in a different fashion. The first thing we need to do is challenge and stress our existing products to make sure that they will react the way that our customers expect them to. Then we think to innovation.
So, Zara, claims is a service. Obviously, we measure service, and we've worked together on that over the years. But that's kind of evolved a lot, hasn't it? The measuring the outcomes. So, how do you do that within Liberty nowadays? What's your kind of approach?
Well, service is absolutely critical to us, and making sure that we've got a really high performing claims team is critical, no matter where in the world, again, that you're sort of working with. We partner obviously with Grace Church and make sure that we're sort of taking on that feedback. Very happy to say that we are, was it 9 years in a row, awarded for our claims service. For us, it's really about listening to those brokers and to those clients, not assuming that we know everything. If we do get feedback, it's acting on that quite quickly. We work with our brokers and their surveys, but we also conduct our own personal surveys to identify, where our opportunities for improvements might be. But also looking at where we're doing things well. How can we replicate that? How can we scale that? And how can we make sure that we're continuing to provide that fast, speedy, and meaningful service?
And I'll add something here, which I think is quite important, is that we've talked a lot about, competition kind of drives service because, businesses want to compete over being the best. And I get that. But I think there's something else I think that's worth saying for insurance in general, and particularly for LSM, I think, is there's a kind of pride, isn't there, in doing service well. And I think that I've seen that increase I think when I started doing this 20 odd years ago, I think there was perhaps less of that. It was quite old fashioned, it felt, but now I feel there's a real pride. Particularly with younger people coming into the business, of it being good at service and doing it well.
And I think creating a career framework and a pathway in claims is really helping with that. It's no longer that back office. It is an opportunity to sort of get into the real meaty stuff, stuff that's happening on the news. You can be involved in when you work in the claims team, and understanding that you can get to sort of senior levels by going through a claims pathway. That really helps. I think that integration into the business as well is really helpful. So understanding what our underwriters are writing, understanding the risks that we're protecting, understanding the company's strategy and the role that claims has got to play in it, protecting that company's capital. So that internal investment is really helpful, and understanding the role they have to play and why it makes sense that they have to respond to that email on time. It's not just a casual email, but that's the sort of reputation of Liberty and the wider London market.
Yeah, we've got to bring more urgency to the transaction, and I think what's ever increasingly important to us is that being a technical expert in your field and being the best subject matter expert is now the minimum we expect from our technical experts, right? Everything else about how we deliver, how we show up in the market, how we show up for our clients and our brokers is now what sets us apart. And, bluntly, changing the minimum expectation of our teams takes time. It's a cultural turnaround, but it's we're well on our way. And, claims are absolutely leading from the front 9 years in a row, as you said, right? We're going for 10 next year. But I think the market is also changing around us. It is now demanding more from us as a carrier of choice. I think the last time we spoke, we said that the last cycle was characterised by data. And there was this hunger for data, but that came at a cost of speed. That's no longer the case. This market will be characterised by speed. So for us to deliver our value proposition, it can no longer be bespoke, boutique, and a little bit slower. It needs to be both of those former things, and it needs to be delivered quickly.
And there's some recent AMIC research, I think, that's been out, which has talked about responsiveness being the main issue for clients, for policyholders. So that absolutely supports that. And I had a conversation with AMIC about that, and we compared data, and actually ours is all about responsiveness too. But I think it's that's kind of a wide term. It feels to me like it's really about communication and kind of getting out there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, to be honest, we've made a bit of a rod for our own back. Once we set the standard and the clarity and we do all the things that we said we're going to do, right, and we've given the client absolute clarity about what they should expect from our products, how they should expect it, therefore, basically, once something fits within the slot, it needs to happen immediately. It's kind of that's our obligation to ourselves. The good news is the hard work we do up front around creating that fairness, that empathy, and that clarity allows us to operate a lot faster. The technology that we spoke about earlier will supercharge that, and that's how we're thinking about it.
And your point, Henry, I just want to mark it because it is so important, and it is actually being explicitly stated now. For example, by big brokers are talking about this, saying technical is no longer that is table stakes. That's a hygiene factor now. It is all about the service and the added value that you deliver through those humans. But you kind of also within that is a technology argument, isn't there? That there's a lot of the data stuff, as you talked about, it is going to be on a computer and is going to be at the fingertips of people.
Yeah, I think that the data and insight, and Zara spoke about it earlier, is sort of clearing up the backlog. Historically, every data point that we've collected has come with an associated cost on time, which is we need to enter that into somewhere to capture it. And, I think the London market as a whole is littered with examples of where effectively every large technology program has started with, let's just standardize the way that every customer from every country operating with every broker approaches us in this market, and then we'll operate really quickly. New technology means that we can now we don't have to do that. We can now create sense out of chaos, and we can do it efficiently, and we can do it quickly. And that is really, I think, why we are at a true inflection point in this market. We no longer have to make the trade-off.
Yeah, and I think too that the businesses are now saying particularly the bigger ones, but also some of the real specialised ones are saying we know where we can position ourselves in a place that shows we are superior in that space, and therefore competitively you can do well. And that I don't think we had that as much in the past. It was a bit one size fits all, wasn't it?
I think our clients are so much more sophisticated. I think the risk management teams within them, they have a better understanding and grappling of claims. They have interesting claims models. And so they're demanding a lot more. And we have to sort of respect that. They have a better handle on what their policies actually mean, the terminologies. They're able to do comparisons to actually spot where some carriers may be using slightly different language. We've got to start moving with them and understanding how sophisticated they are. And of course, they're right to be demanding. They're paying a lot of money for a service. They're right to be demanding and making sure that it sort of responds, and we have to work with them on that. The other thing as well, sort of going back to the data point, we can't do that in isolation. So yes, we've done it from a Liberty perspective. We've done a lot of work on that loss coding, but that doesn't really mean anything if it doesn't sort of translate into what our brokers are seeing and how they're managing things. So actually for us, we've partnered with a number of those key brokers to make sure that we're marrying up and that we're speaking the same language. That when we do that, then we can start creating more efficiencies. Then we can start really sort of analysing and interrogating that data to start making some improvements.
And we've just done some work with Libra on the value of the broker, which you have, Liberty has kindly been involved with too, partnering on that. And that has said, one of the areas really where brokers were talking about where they want to do more is the collaboration around claims. And they talk about advocacy, but it's really about saying, what do we do with the data and how can we help clients? It seems to me that's a really important thing for the future, actually, is to get that right and to be able to deliver through that value chain to those clients, isn't it?
Yeah. We have to be asking the right questions, though.
Yeah,
because there's
absolutely.
a lot of information, there's a lot of data,
Yeah.
but if we don't know what the problem we're trying to solve is, and that's, I think, where we've got to do a little bit more work as an industry.
Yeah, there's this phrase knowing and doing, isn't it? I think everybody knows what needs to happen, but the doing is often quite challenging. I know that, but that's it. So let me just, this is kind of nicely taken into kind of our final bit, really, which is, this has been brilliant, by the way. How do you think claims will, this is a really difficult question as well, how do you think claims will change in the next 5 years? What's going to happen? Crystal ball time.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I think 5 years is far away, but also not that far away, right? So do I think there's going to be radical changes? Do I think we're all suddenly going to be robots and actually claims handlers are just going to be there for a bit of consultative work? Probably not. But also I wouldn't want to see it like that. I think that human element, I've talked about that a lot today, but that human element is so important. Those relationships are so important with our brokers and our markets, with our peers in the market, particularly from a claims perspective, when we're looking to get quick results and stuff with big, massive market losses, understanding what our peers are doing, bringing them on the journey, bringing markets together as a leading position is still going to be absolutely critical. I think what I'd like to see is claims brought further forward in that sales cycle. So we talked about the AIRMIC report. We actually did a pulse survey, I think it was in 23 now, where we sort of asked some of those risk managers where they see claims and are they involved in that pitch process? Are they part of that renewal? And of those individuals who said yes, 98% of them found that a benefit. So I think we're going to see more of that. I'm hopeful that we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see the technologies coming in, the usage of AIs and stuff like that to sort of take away some of that admin, to speed some of the basic claims up or some of those basic tasks so that frees up our claims handlers to add that value. But I also think that the claims team itself will continue to diversify. I think we'll have that sort of talent fluidity. We'll have more sort of data analysts and business analysts and stuff like that being built into that claims handler, and that training of that new generation coming through. I think that's where we're going to start seeing the individuals and skill sets potentially changing. And
you're really talking there about reskilling as well, because we did some work, as you know, with the ICP, which said claims people all around the world pretty unanimously said claims is becoming more important. You might say they would say that, they're claims people, but they also said we need to reskill and we need leadership support in that. And both in technology and soft skills, they talked about like sales skills and BD skills and so on.
Absolutely. It's not fair for someone who's been sort of a technical handler for 25 years to suddenly say, right, go and sit in front of a client and tell them all their risks and tell them how you can help them. Take all that information you've got in your head and now just present it, please. That needs partnership. That does need some of that selling. And I think a sort of a warning is you can't just put a claims person in a pitch. You can't just suddenly throw them in front of a client. If they're not sort of confident in what they're doing, they don't understand the context, the landscape, the strategy of that client, either for the business or for themselves, that can actually be worse. So I do think that proper preparation and investing in those individual skill sets is what's going to make the difference.
I mean, I 100% agree with that. And I experience that daily, talking to teams. You can see how, LSM is one of the most advanced teams. You've done so much work and you're a very big business too. So clearly you invest in all of that. But I think if you look across the piece, back to the technical thing, there is still a very strong technical base, which is good. But there is less of the skills that are needed for the future. You can kind of see that. And as you say, I think the word fair, being fair to people and saying we've got to this will be as big a challenge as technology, I think, is people adapting to the change, isn't it?
Yeah, as Zara said, 5 years is a reasonably long time. People that we're bringing into the organisation will then be half a decade through their career, and there's no doubt that they will bring change with them. And in some ways, they will drive change faster than, if management is sitting there trying to make a load of decisions about how we're going to use technology to better our sales process or our claims process, then we've got a problem on our hands, right? That because, management have come up doing it a certain way, and so as a result, we need the organisation itself to start reacting to the change. To answer your question about how do we see it changing, we've already seen the trend to the fact that whether it's claims, whether it's risk engineering, whether it's our actuarial colleagues, fundamentally all of those parts of the integrated business unit will become more important as part of setting ourselves apart, differentiating our value proposition, and claims will be no different. What I hope to see more fungibility of skills. I hope to see people moving around the organisation more, whether that's underwriting to claims to underwriting, increasing the way that we think about distribution. I think, Zara's an absolute trailblazer in that space, particularly in the claims market. But, we want to see more of that and we want to supercharge it. I think the real thing that we haven't cracked yet as a market, or as, and it's something that we're spending a lot of time on at Liberty, is we see a lot more business than we write. Yeah. And to date, all of the analytics and insight that we deliver back to our customers, which is gratefully received, is usually reasonably limited by the business that we write rather than the business that we see. And so expanding that perimeter effectively of insight out is really needs to be the thing that we do next.
And I'm hearing that I've been speaking to some people in the market who said that claims data in particular is very useful. If you can get the analytics around good quality claims data, you can start to see, well, we could have written that, we should have written that. Those are things where we can, in the Libre survey, we talked a lot about the protection gap and how you close that. But that's the kind of stuff that has to happen now, doesn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, do you want to add a bit there, Zara?
I was just going to be talking about, the sort of claims feedback loop. And we're doing so much, I think, as an industry, but particularly at Liberty to make sure that those data, those analytics, that every time we see something, we're making those adjustments quickly. And I think the way that we're sort of set up, integrated into the rest of the business, is really helping that. And again, going back where we see that in 5 years, I feel like it's going to be even closer, working shoulder to shoulder, those departments and functions. So it can makes those improvements.
Brilliant. So maybe, Henry, shall I leave you with the last word, because you're the main man now. You're in the front line, right? You are. No, I just who are the winners? What's going to enable you to win as a business? You are a business. You want to be, the best at what you do.
100%. And I think as we see the dynamics of what's facing us, and as an industry, we've covered a lot of ground here. So summarising it will be a challenge, but I'll give it a go. So, fundamentally, the risk environment around us is changing, and while that creates challenge, it also creates a huge amount of opportunity, and we see it as our obligation to support our customers in that risk environment in a stable, consistent way. But we also recognise that doing it the way that we've done it for the last 25 years in lots of ways isn't going to help our customers for the next 25 years. Liberty Mutual continues to evolve at pace, and investing increasingly in claims, in our colleagues in risk engineering, in all parts of the integrated business unit is just becoming much, much more important, because all of that allows us to make better decisions and provide better services to our customers. So that's absolutely still the absolute cornerstone of what we're going to do. We mustn't take our eye off the cycle. There is no doubt that sort of globally, the P&C cycle, the FinPro cycle, they are softening, which is to the benefit of our customers in lots of places. But this cycle is different from cycles that we've seen previously. I say it to our teams all the time. Anybody who says we've been here before, they are sorely mistaken. And again, that creates an interesting environment for us to be operating in as a carrier. But bluntly, it brings us back to our core values again, which is we have to stick to the things that we know are important to our customers and our brokers. And I can think of no better example than our claims team. So,
brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much. I will just say one thing. I think in terms of summing up, you can't sum up this conversation. It has gone very far and wide. The impression that you get from hearing you both speak about claims and where it fits into the whole business is actually, it must be a really exciting thing to join. If I was kind of young, I'd go, actually, that's where I want to be. That's where the action is. It is challenging, but that's part of the fun, isn't it, of being in business and solving problems and all that.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Henry, Zara.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Hope it all goes well in your next 5 years.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ben.